Hello and good morning. And today we are going to be speaking about chapter 28 of Kitzur Sulchan Aruch, the summary of Jewish law. And we're learning about the laws of owning a Sefer Torah. And the reason that there's this study is now is because we just learned about the actual mitzvah to study Torah. So once we did that, we also went on to the mitzvah of having Jewish books in your home, which is actually the last mitzvah of the Jewish people. Last mitzvah of the Torah. It says, "Va'ata kitvu lachem et hashira hazot." Now write for yourself this song, and the song is the Torah. Write for yourself the entire Torah. Keep it in your homes, and there are many that hold that it's enough to own a book of the Torah in your home, and that's also included in the mitzvah of writing a Torah. So you don't actually have to have a scroll. Obviously, that's extra special to have and buy a scroll and somebody that passed away, or to own one. It's a big mitzvah. But if you can't afford that because they are very expensive, you can at least buy Sfarim, Sifrei Kodesh, holy books, and put them in your home. It's very important. It makes a person wise just by owning books in itself. So that's the laws of today. And we're also going to be speaking about how to look after the books and ways that we can really show our love for the holy books and to instill within us an appreciation for what they are. So, chapter 28 of Kitzur Sulchan Aruch, the summary of Jewish law. Number 1, mitzvat aseh al kol ish miYisrael lichtov lo sefer Torah shene'emar. It's a mitzvah for each Jew to buy a Torah, as it says, "Va'ata kitvu lachem et hashira hazot." Now write for yourself this song. This was Moses speaking to the Jewish people. "V'kiblu chachamenu zichrono levacha pirusho lichtov et kol haTorah sheyesh ba'hashira." Our rabbis understood that and explained that they received it from our tradition, that this means to write the entire Torah. Even if you inherit a Torah from your parents, still, mitzvah lichtov mishelo, you should still have your own. Sachalo sofer lichtov lo sefer Torah, or shekanao, hiring a scribe to write one for you specifically, or buying one, is what you can do. V'haya bo ta'ut v'higio, arei ze ki'ilu ketavo. If it had a mistake in it, and you are the one that fixes it up, even though you didn't write it yourself, that's as if you wrote it yourself. That's why when there's a celebration of a new Torah that's written, they normally leave out the scribe would leave a few letters at the back at the end of the Torah for the people that bought it to write in it as if they wrote the whole Torah. V'asulim kol sefer Torah, you must not sell it because en moridim b'kodesh. Once that's the holiest thing you can use your money for. So if you sell it, you are moridim b'kodesh. You lower the sanctification of what you have. But in a moment where it's very desperate, then obviously ask a scholar for advice on what to do. Because obviously in some cases, if you consult a rabbi, a great scholar, he'll be able to help and allow you to maybe sell the Torah or give you advice of how you can survive your difficult situation. Number 2, similarly, the mitzvah is for every person to buy other books that are holy so that you can study with. For instance, a Chumash, a Mishnah, a Talmud, and different commentaries. And you can also lend them, or you should lend them to others when you're not using it. Somebody doesn't have money to buy a Torah or Jewish books. I just saw today that many hold that you can buy Jewish books through your maaser money, through your tithing money. So if you have some maisa, you can actually buy Jewish books as long as you write in it that it's for public use and other people can use it. Then you can actually use your charity money to buy Jewish books. Here's a very interesting thing. What's better, to buy a Sefer Torah or to buy study books that you can study Jewish law with? A Sefer Torah is left in the ark, but books that you can actually learn with, that's going to be used, is much more important. So that's what he says here. Hasfarim shehen letzorech limud hen konmim. The books that are for the sakes of learning with, they come first. Amru Rabbeinu zichronon levracha, right? Books are not just made to be on a shelf. A rabbi said, "V'tzikato omedet la'ad." His righteousness will last forever. Who's that? Zeh hakotev sfarim umashilan lachrim. This is a person that writes and lends to others, because when people study and there's books, that lasts way past your living time, and its impact is huge. So that's why it says tzikato omed la'ad. Righteousness stays forever. Number 3, chayav adam linhog kavod gadol b'sefer Torah. A person needs to have a lot of honor and respect for a Torah. The way you respect it is the way you will actually keep it and feel for it. There's a mitzvah to have a specific designated place for it and to make it look beautiful as possible, which is the ark. And by the way, according to Jewish law, the ark also has holiness. You can't just treat the ark in itself as, even without the Torah, as something which is with no value. You can't spit next to the Torah. Move to the side or whatever is necessary. Never hold the Torah without a covering. If somebody sees someone carrying it, immediately you have to stand up. Until the Torah goes back to its original place. Or until the point you can't see the Torah anymore. In a synagogue, when they are taking out and bringing in a Torah, mitzvah, there is a big mitzvah for whoever it passes by, that you should accompany the Torah until it goes to its place. Similarly, the one that lifts it up or rolls it after we read from it or before we read from it, should go and accompany the Torah after he's done. Number 4. Even other holy books, if it's on a bench, you can't sit on the same bench because now it's on the same level as you. Unless it's books that are placed on something which is already a 10 centimeters above the bench. So if there's like a box and the book is on the box and you're sitting on the bench, that's fine. Of course, all the more so, you cannot put books on the floor. A person shouldn't put holy books on his knees. Whilst his hands are on them. In a time of need, a necessary time, then you can obviously sit on a place where even a box which has holy books in it. Obviously, it's a difficult situation. Someone fell or sick and he needs to sit down, and this is the only place that you can sit is on a box with holy books in it. You can sit on it. So if it has a Sefer Torah, a scroll that we read from on the Torah, the scribe, the real Torah, then it's forbidden. There's an order of how you put books. You can always, if you see a bunch of books on top of each other, always make sure that the Chumash is on top of the other books underneath, because the Chumash is the holiest book that we have. That's the Bible. So you always put the Chumash on top, and then the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the writings. You put Ketuvim, the writings, on top of the stories of the prophets. So Psalms, Shir Hashirim, and all those go on top of the stories of the prophets. Nevi'im al gabe Ketuvim, and prophets on top of Ketuvim. Aval en manichim Nevi'im u'Ketuvim al gabe Chumashim. You can't put the books of Nevi'im and Ketuvim on top of a Chumash. Okay. Sefer Torah Shebala. Number 5. A Sefer Torah that has been worn out, not usable. Gonzinoto, we can put it in we have to put it, bury it, and put it stored away in a special place. Similarly with anything which is of holy scribes, holy books, which are holy to us, we are forbidden to burn them. We have to gonez otam, which is to bury them in special place. Number 6, en zolkin kitvei kodesh. You can't throw them. Afilu halachot v'agadot, even laws, books of halachot, Jewish law and agadah, which is different stories and insights. Hasur lahafoch otan al pneihem. You can't turn them upside down. Ve'im metza'an hafuchim tzarich lanichan karaui. If you see them upside down, you should turn it on its right way round, and that is a very important Jewish law. En lahashtin mayim b'fnei svarim. You can't go to the bathroom with your svarim in front of the svarim. If they're covered, that's fine. Ule'et hatzorech, in a time of need, al kol panim yiyu monachim gvoim 10 tvachim, then at least make sure they're above you, high, at 10 tvachim high. So if you do need to go, don't leave them right next to it. Put them a bit higher. Number 8, en lasot mapot u'me'ilim ledavar shebekdusha. You can't use tablecloths or clothes old clothes for the sakes of covering holy books. Midavar shenishtamesh bo hediot, because you're using something that's a simple person used, and now you're putting it on something which is very, very holy. And we hold that we need to treat the books with holiness, and by using old clothes to cover a Torah, I am diminishing the value of the Torah. If it's done already and someone sewed it, put it, then it's okay. Something that was used for idol worship, no matter what, that is forbidden to be used to cover the Torah. Number 9, you cannot use a book for your benefit. For instance, to use it to keep you from the shade of the sun. Oh, I forgot to sketch. There we go. You can't use a Torah for your benefit. For instance, to use it to keep you shade from the sun. That's something we don't do. Or in a way that you don't want your friend to see what you're doing. If the sun is shining on the book, the sun is shining on the book you're studying with, then you can use another book to give you the shade for the actual book, because I'm not using the book for my benefit. I'm using it for the sake of another book. So that's okay. Another holy book. Similarly, if you're studying one book and you have another book underneath it, another holy book underneath it, and you're doing that in order so that you can read, and it's higher, so it's closer to your face, and it's for the benefit of study itself. There's a reason to allow that, because it's all for the sakes of studying Torah itself. But one must not put one book into another book. When we have a book like this and there's a book inside it, it can ruin it, and it's not respectable. And you do that, people do that in order so that, for the meantime, I won't have to look afterwards for where the place is. Another point is, lo yisartet is a kuntos al ha-sefer. You can't make marks for a notebook on a holy book, because there's no holiness in a notebook until you write in it. So you can write commentary on a holy book, but you can't add a notebook to it, because the notebook itself, till you write in it, is not holy. Similarly, you can't put paper just to hold the place or to look after the book, just to know where it is. We don't do that also for holy books, because we want to treat them with kedusha. Number 10, ha'ma'abed kitvei kodesh. If somebody destroys or makes lost holy books, he's transgressing a transgression of the Torah, which says you should be holy, and you shouldn't be like what others do with other books. Don't do these things to God, Hashem. What's it talking about? It's talking about respecting and giving respect to these books itself. We need to protest against those that bind these books, the holy books, because They put very holy writings in. They put their covers. The medabkin betoch haluchot kitvei kodesh. They put into their regular books holy papers. They organize things and they put holy papers into regular books that are not holy. You have to also be very careful. When you put old holy books, when you give them, when you give them to a professional who's not Jewish to bind them, make sure that he takes the covers, because you're rebinding an old book. So you want to take the old cover and make sure that it's kept aside and it's not used, that cover is not used for another book. Maybe he'll use it for something else or recycle it. We keep the covers as well. They're also considered as holy. I said recycle. I don't know if recycling is forbidden. I don't know if recycling a cover of a holy book is forbidden. I need to check what the halacha is of that. Number 11. You can't take a Sefer Torah, tefillin, and mezuzot from a non-Jew for more than the price that it's made for, because the non-Jew doesn't need tefillin, he doesn't need the Torah, he doesn't need mezuzot, so he's doing it in order to make money. However, why does he have it? If we start allowing him to charge more than its original price, then he's going to get used to that and make a lot of profit off us, and we can control how these things are being sold. So this will not allow them to be accustomed to stealing and thieving them from us. But for its original value, then you do pay. We do pay from a non-Jew a book with its original value. So let's say he's a property owner and he bought this house, and inside this house he finds a lot of Jewish books in there and he wants to sell them. That's fine, but he can't sell them for more than its original price, and we would leave it in his hands if he's selling it for more. If the non-Jew does ask much more than the original price, we should convince him and tell him, please give us the original price. This is how much it is in the market. Maybe he'll agree for its original value. If he stands on his mind, he doesn't change his mind, we leave it in his hands. But also don't ask and beg him to sell it for too cheap. Because maybe he'll get upset and then throw them in the garbage anyway, saying, this is all a waste of time, and throw it away. So you pay the original price when you buy a book, Jewish book, from a non-Jew who doesn't even need the book himself. Number 12, if somebody drops a Sefer Torah, even with its cover, and it drops onto the floor. This has happened. Synagogues that drop a Sefer Torah, the whole synagogue needs to fast. Even those that see it have to fast. If it's an old person, it's brought down in halacha that the old person can give tzedakah or do something else in order to make up for what he saw, but he has to do something. And the real law is that you should fast. If somebody can't, so then they give tzedakah. Number 13, asur lichtov pasuk bli sirtut. When they write the Torah, you cannot write the Torah, a verse of the Torah, without making a clear line. In all the Torahs, I don't know if you noticed, but in a real scroll, there are lines that were with a small knife are made onto the actual onto the parchment, so that it would stay straight and clear. So you can't write on a verse of the Torah without having a line on it. Also, we can't write secular ideas or secular words using the original ktav, the original writing script of the Torah. We write in script writing, but the original writing of the Hebrew Torah is only written for the Torah. That's that actual font is only kept for the Torah. If we want to write our own things in Hebrew, and it's nothing to do with Judaism, nothing to do with Torah, then it can be written, but it's written in script format. Okay, so that's the end of today. Learning all the laws of having a Torah and holy books. Tomorrow, we will start learning about midot, personality traits that are good for people. A lot of it's based on the Talmud in Sotah, finding the middle path. It's very exciting. Okay, thank you for listening.